Cole Mitchell was 3 days away from losing everything when he found her lying unconscious in the mud beside his dying creek. The foreclosure notice had been burning a hole in his pocket for weeks, and now this woman with torn clothes and cuts across her face had appeared like some kind of sign he wasn't sure he wanted to read. What happened next would change both their lives forever. But first, let me tell you how a broken rancher and a silent stranger discovered that sometimes salvation comes in the most unexpected forms. The October wind cut through the Wyoming Valley like a blade, carrying the scent of early snow and the bitter taste of another failed harvest. Cole's boots squelched through the mud as he approached the creek that had once run clear and strong through his family's land. 3 generations of Mitchells had worked this ranch, and now he was about to be the one who lost it all. The bank's deadline loomed like a storm cloud, and his cattle were getting thinner by the day as the drought stretched into its 2nd year. Thunder, his 20-year-old quarter horse, nickered softly from the fence line. The old bay had been his father's horse, then his, and now they were both showing their age. Cole's joints ached in the cold morning air as he bent to check the water level, and Thunder's once glossy coat had grown dull and shaggy. They were survivors, the 2 of them, but even survivors had their limits. That's when he saw her. At first, Cole thought it might be a pile of discarded clothes or debris washed down from the hills, but as he got closer, his heart started pounding. A woman lay face down in the shallow water where his creek met the main road. Her long black hair spread like spilled ink across the mud. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and angry red welts marked her exposed arms. Cole rushed forward, his knees hitting the cold water as he carefully turned her over. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with high cheekbones and copper-toned skin that suggested Native American heritage. A nasty gash ran along her temple, and her breathing was shallow but steady. She was alive, but barely conscious, mumbling, something he couldn't understand. He gathered her carefully in his arms, surprised by how light she felt, and carried her toward the ranch house. Thunder followed along the fence line, whinnying with an urgency Cole had never heard before. The horse's behavior was strange, almost protective, as if he recognized something about this stranger that Cole couldn't see. Inside the modest ranch house, Cole laid her on the old sofa and grabbed his first aid kit. As he cleaned the cut on her head, she stirred, her dark eyes fluttering open with a wild, panicked expression. When she saw him leaning over her, she scrambled backward against the arm of the couch, her mouth opening in a silent scream. "Hey, it's okay," Cole said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe here. I'm Cole Mitchell. I found you by the creek." But she didn't respond. Her eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for escape routes. When Cole tried to speak to her again, she pressed herself further into the corner, her whole body trembling. It was clear she'd been through something terrible, something that had left her unable or unwilling to trust another human being. For 3 days, she remained on his couch, accepting food and water, but never speaking a word. Cole called the sheriff, but there were no missing person reports that matched her description. Doc Henderson, the local physician, confirmed she had no serious injuries beyond the cuts and bruises, but something deeper was broken inside her. Then, on the 4th morning, Cole discovered something that would change everything. He was leading Thunder to the small pasture when he heard a voice, soft and melodic, speaking in what sounded like a native language. He froze, listening carefully, and realized the voice was coming from the woman. She was standing at the fence, her hand extended toward Thunder, whispering to the old horse as if they were sharing ancient secrets. Thunder's ears perked forward in a way Cole hadn't seen in years, and the old horse stepped closer to the fence with surprising energy. The woman continued speaking in her native tongue, her voice gaining strength with each word. Cole stood frozen behind the barn door, afraid that any movement might break whatever spell was happening between them. She reached through the fence, rails, and touched Thunder's muzzle, and the horse pressed against her hand like they were old friends, reunited after a long separation. Cole felt his throat tighten as he watched this silent woman, who had barely acknowledged his existence for 4 days, pour her heart out to his horse. When she finally stepped back from the fence, Cole waited several minutes before approaching. Thunder was still standing there, ears forward, as if waiting for her return. The woman had already disappeared back into the house, but something fundamental had shifted in the ranch's atmosphere. That afternoon, Cole found her sitting on the front porch steps, staring out at the rolling hills that stretched toward the Wind River Mountains. The autumn sun cast golden light across the valley, highlighting the yellow cottonwoods along the creek. He settled beside her, careful to leave plenty of space between them, and followed her gaze toward the distant peaks. "I've been thinking about selling this place," he said quietly, not expecting an answer but needing to voice the words that had been eating at him. "My grandfather built that barn with his own hands. My father added the south pasture. 3 generations of work, and I'm about to lose it all because I can't make the numbers work anymore." She didn't respond, but he noticed she was listening. Her posture had relaxed slightly, and she was no longer poised to run. "Thunder out there. He's been with our family for 20 years. My dad bought him as a colt from the Shoshone Reservation. Up north, always said that horse had more sense than most people." Cole picked up a piece of gravel and tossed it toward the dirt road. "Bank's coming next week to finalize the foreclosure. I keep telling myself I'll figure something out, but I'm running out of miracles." The woman turned to look at him for the first time since he'd found her. Her dark eyes held depths of pain that reminded him of Thunder's expression when he'd lost his previous owner. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, frustration flickering across her features. Cole stood up slowly. "I'll be in the barn if you need anything. Doc Henderson said he'd stop by tomorrow to check on your injuries." As he walked away, he heard her voice again, but this time she wasn't speaking to Thunder. The words were still in her native language, but they seemed directed at him. He turned back, and she was watching him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. That evening, Cole was repairing a broken bridle in the barn when he heard footsteps. The woman appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the purple Wyoming sunset. She moved cautiously into the barn, and Thunder nickered from his stall. She went straight to the horse, speaking to him in those same gentle tones Cole had heard that morning. Cole continued working on the bridle, pretending not to listen as she carried on what sounded like a conversation with Thunder. The horse responded, with soft whickers and gentle movements, as if he understood every word. After nearly an hour, she approached Cole's workbench. She pointed to the foreclosure notice he'd left on the bench, then to herself, then to Thunder. Her meaning wasn't clear, but her expression was determined. She picked up a pencil and searched for paper, finally settling on the back of an old feed receipt. She drew quickly, her hand moving with practiced confidence. The drawing showed a horse, unmistakably Thunder, standing next to a woman who looked like her. Behind them was a landscape that seemed familiar, yet different from Cole's ranch. She pointed to the drawing, then to herself, then back to the paper. Cole studied the sketch, trying to understand what she was telling him. "You know horses?" he asked. She nodded emphatically, then drew more figures. People on horseback, horses being trained, horses performing intricate movements. Her eyes lit up as she drew, and for the first time since he'd found her, she looked truly alive. Thunder whinnied from his stall, as if adding his own commentary to the conversation. The next morning brought the first real snow of the season, dusting the ranch in a thin layer of white that made everything look both beautiful and more desperate. Cole found the woman in the barn before sunrise, grooming Thunder with gentle, expert strokes. The old horse stood perfectly still, his eyes half closed in contentment, while she worked the brush through his coat with a technique Cole had never seen before. Doc Henderson arrived just after breakfast, his pickup truck crunching through the gravel as he parked near the house. The woman retreated to the barn when she saw him coming, but Cole noticed she stayed where she could watch through the doorway. "How's our patient doing?" Doc asked, removing his worn medical bag from the truck. He'd been the only doctor in this part of Wyoming for 30 years, and his weathered face had seen every kind of tragedy the harsh landscape could produce. "Better, I think. She's been working with my horse. Seems to have a real way with animals." Cole led him toward the barn, speaking quietly. "Still won't say a word to me, but I heard her talking to Thunder in what sounds like Shoshone." Doc Henderson paused at the barn entrance, studying the woman as she continued brushing Thunder. "That's Ayanna Crow Feather," he said softly. "I thought she looked familiar when you described her. She's from the Wind River Reservation. Her family runs a horse rescue program up there." Cole felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. What happened to her? Her brother got mixed up with some bad people from back east, gambling debts from what I heard. When he couldn't pay, they came looking for collateral. Doc's voice grew grim. Ayanna had trained horses worth more than most people see in a lifetime, traditional Shoshone methods passed down through generations. These men figured they'd take what they could and sell it. The woman, Ayanna, had stopped grooming Thunder and was listening, though she pretended to focus on the horse. Her hands trembled slightly as Doc continued. She fought back when they tried to take her horses. They beat her pretty bad and cut off most of her hair as a warning. In our culture, a woman's hair holds her power, her connection to the ancestors. It was meant to break her spirit. Doc shook his head. She escaped during the night, but they'd already taken her best horses. Word is they're planning to sell them at auction down in Colorado next week. Cole felt anger rising in his chest. Why didn't she go to the police? Same reason a lot of folks around here don't trust outside law enforcement. Too many promises broken, too many times when justice didn't come. Doc approached Ayanna slowly. But she's safe now. At the sound of her name, Ayanna turned. When she saw Doc Henderson, recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by relief. She spoke rapidly in Shoshone, her voice stronger than Cole had heard it before. Doc translated for Cole. "She says Thunder told her about your troubles, says he's carrying the same sadness she feels about losing what matters most." Cole looked between them, confused. Thunder told her? Horses communicate differently than people do. They read energy, emotion, intention. Ayanna learned to understand that language before she could walk. Doc smiled gently at her. "She wants to know if you'd be willing to trust her with something important." Ayanna approached Cole's workbench and picked up the pencil again. This time, she drew a more detailed picture. It showed horses performing elaborate movements with people watching and money changing hands. She pointed to Thunder, then to herself, then to the drawing. Horse training demonstrations, Cole realized. "You think Thunder can learn those movements?" She nodded enthusiastically, then drew more images. A sign that read, "Traditional Shoshone Horse Training." Crowds of people, trucks and trailers bringing horses to the ranch. She pointed to his foreclosure notice and made a gesture that suggested pushing it away. Doc Henderson watched the exchange with growing excitement. "Cole, do you realize what she's offering? Authentic Native American horse training is extremely rare. People travel from all over the country to see it. If you could host demonstrations here, training clinics, maybe even boarding for people who want their horses trained in traditional methods." Cole felt his heart racing. But Thunder's 20 years old. Can he really learn new tricks? Ayanna moved to Thunder's stall and whispered something in his ear. The old horse lifted his head high and stepped backward in a movement so graceful It looked like dancing. Then he bowed his head low, front legs extending forward in what looked like a formal greeting. Thunder had never done anything like that before in his life. 2 weeks later, the Mitchell Ranch buzzed with activity for the first time in years. Word had spread through Wyoming and beyond about the traditional Shoshone horse training demonstrations, and people were driving hundreds of miles to witness something most had only heard about in stories. Cole stood on the porch, watching Ayanna work with Thunder in the main corral, and still couldn't quite believe how quickly everything had changed. The transformation hadn't been easy. Those first few days after Doc Henderson's visit, Ayanna had worked with Thunder from dawn until dusk, speaking to him in Shoshone, while teaching him movements that seemed to flow from some ancient memory. Cole had watched in amazement as his old horse discovered a grace and purpose he'd never shown before. More importantly, Ayanna had slowly begun to trust Cole with words. First just single words in English, then short phrases, and finally full conversations about horses, training techniques, and the deep spiritual connection between human and animal that formed the foundation of her people's methods. The bank. "Called this morning?" Cole told her as she approached the fence after finishing Thunder's session. "I made the payment, all of it, plus enough to cover next month." Ayanna smiled, the first full smile he'd seen from her since finding her by the creek. "Thunder knew," she said in her softly accented English. "He told me 3 days ago that the sadness was leaving this place." Cole had stopped questioning how she seemed to communicate with horses. He'd seen too much evidence to doubt it, and, frankly, it didn't matter how it worked. What mattered was that it did work, and that people were willing to pay well to learn from someone who possessed such a rare gift. A truck pulling a horse trailer turned into the ranch driveway, and Cole recognized the license plates from Colorado. "That's the Hendersons from Denver. They're bringing their Arabian mare for a week-long training intensive." "Thunder is ready to help teach her," Ayanna said, stroking the old horse's neck. "He says she carries fear from a bad experience with humans. We will help her remember that. Not all people bring pain." As they walked toward the house to greet their guests, Ayanna touched Cole's arm gently. "I want to tell you something important. My hair is growing back, but that's not the healing that matters most. What those men took from me wasn't just my horses or my hair. They took my voice, my trust, my belief that the world held more kindness than cruelty." She paused at the porch steps, looking out over the ranch that now bustled with new life. "Thunder brought my voice back first, but you gave me a place to use it again. You trusted me when I couldn't even trust myself." Cole felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You saved this place, Ayanna. You saved me from losing everything my family built." "We saved each other," she corrected, "and Thunder saved us both by knowing we needed to find each other." The Colorado couple climbed out of their truck, and Cole and Ayanna moved forward to welcome them. As they walked, Thunder nickered softly from the corral, and Ayanna smiled. "What did he say this time?" Cole asked. "He says this is just the beginning. He sees many more horses coming here to heal, and many more people learning to listen with their hearts instead of just their ears." That evening, after their guests had settled into the guest cabin Cole had hurriedly renovated, he and Ayanna sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in shades of gold and purple. Thunder grazed peacefully in the pasture, looking younger and more vital than he had in years. "I've been thinking," Cole said. "This partnership we've got, it's working better than I ever imagined, but I want to make sure you know this is your home now, for as long as you want it to be." Ayanna nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind his words. "My grandmother always said that sometimes the spirits send us exactly where we need to be, even when the journey there breaks our hearts." I think she was right. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Thunder lifted his head and looked toward the house. as if to say he approved of the conversation he couldn't hear, but somehow understood perfectly. The Mitchell Ranch had found its new purpose, and 3 broken souls had discovered that healing sometimes comes not from forgetting the past, but from building something beautiful on the foundation of shared pain and mutual trust. If this story touched your heart, and you want to see more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected connections, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that even in our darkest moments, help can come from the most unexpected places. What's your most powerful story of healing or unexpected kindness? Share it in the comments below. Your story might inspire our next video. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most profound conversations happen without words at all.